Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we're going to talk about Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. We're in Chapter 7, Siege of Calamon, and specifically at this point, the player characters are on the Flying Citadel. They've infiltrated, they've ridden Dragonels up, and they've infiltrated the Flying Citadel from the bottom through these tunnels, right? And at this point, they need to find. They've found the mirror of. They have found the mirror of reflected past. They're ready to get this in front of Lord Soth, right, and distract him. And because every non-player character that can talk to them is telling them, do not go against Lord Soth. In combat, if you think you're just going to swing your sword and defeat him, you're wrong. He's going to kill you, right? So you have to distract him, right? So I love this like continued warning of the players, like, this ain't, this is Lord Soth, man. You're not going to be able to just beat him with your swords and with your spells. It's not enough, right? Which the main bad should be bad, right? Like, and this does a really good job of just showing people what it means to a D&D canon hardback adventure all the way through, right? Like, and you're talking like this is like 12 levels of progress. It's a lot, right? It's really major. So at this point, the player characters have the mirror of reflected past, and they come across Knight of the Rose, Caradoc. He is an undead knight, right? He is serving in the Red Dragon army, right? And so the player characters come across him, but what's really interesting is Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen does a brilliant job of really using undead in all the ways they can be used, right? So the player characters have already dealt with Caradoc when he was in Calamon, and he slew every member of the Council of Calamon, killed them all, right? And he had shown this ability to appear alive. Now he is possessing a Calamon soldier, right? Specifically for a veteran stat block, right? And it's a female Calamon soldier, which really gets interesting because, first of all, Caradoc does not even want to fight the player characters. He actually wants to talk to them about Lord Soth, right? But if the player characters are like, oh, it's Caradoc, let's just kill him, they are literally having to kill a Calamon soldier. And that is a very interesting, it's a moral quandary, right? Like, and this is one of the greatest things about Dungeons & Dragons is like, okay, you're fighting to save the world, but does that mean you just get to kill a human being, right? Like, and some player characters would be like, man, like, there have been people dropping left and right. There's hundreds of people dying right now, even as this Flying Citadel, we're just going to have to take this person's life. Or they could be like, hey, we need to do something to pull Caradoc out of her. Or if we can get past Caradoc without fighting Caradoc, then that leaves that Calamon soldier alive, right? And this is really interesting, just having this question of what is a single life worth? It's really fascinating, right? So Caradoc, he actually makes no attempt to hide himself in the veteran. He's like, hey, I'm Knight of Solamnia, Order of the Rose, Caradoc. I saw y'all at Calamon. Remember when I killed all those council members? Wasn't that fun, right? And what he says is, hey, listen, okay, I see you're questing. I see that you're close to getting ready to take on Lord Soth. But the reality is, you don't need to do that. Listen, or actually he's saying, hey, I can help you. And the reason why is I just want the Flying Citadel, right? So I want to take over the Flying Citadel. And when I do, I will take it away from Calamon. I won't use it here, right? I'll go somewhere else. And I want to possess the Flying Citadel, right? So the player characters have this option, right? And to actually skip the fight with Caradoc, because Caradoc's pretty dangerous on his own, right? And actually accept any help he can give them, right? And he knows Lord Soth, so he might be pretty helpful, right? And so they have this option to team up with Caradoc in one perspective or another, and it gets quite interesting. So your player characters have this option to deal with Caradoc, right? But what gets really interesting is all this links to Spelljammer, right? And I love the way, and this is why Dungeons & Dragons defeats every indie out there, right? Is because they are building book over book over book, right? And the Flying Citadel is flown with a Flying Citadel helm, right? So if somebody buys the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen, they're going to know, right? They're going to know what it says about the Flying Citadel helm. And it stats the Flying Citadel helm. But if they spent time in Spelljammer for months, right, when that book came out, they realize in order to attune to a Flying Citadel helm, in order to attune to any helm, right, the only way that happens is if you if you're a spellcaster, right? And Caradoc is not a spellcaster. He is actually just a fighter. So if they know this, they know that his plans to take the Flying Citadel, that when he tries to fly it, it will fall out of the sky, right? So if they can actually, there can be if Caradoc has a way to help them defeat Soth, they can let Caradoc take command of the Flying Citadel, knowing it's going to fall out of the sky because he has no ability to run it, right? And so it's really fascinating, and this actually helps players who have been helps players who actually played through Spelljammer, right, and know about helms, right, and how they work. Also, Spelljammer just built helms, and here it is being used very effectively in the next book, right? And so one of the things that the Dungeons & Dragons design team is doing is there's actually leveraging what they're building, right? And you don't see this level of design on OSE, on DCC, on Pathfinder, and the reason why is it's all copy energy there. Here's another goblin, cut it in half, move on, right? Whereas everything that's being designed on Dungeons & Dragons is coming from that Gary Gygax energy of, we got to do more, right? We have, he built Dungeons & Dragons. Then he went to Hollywood and he was like, I'm going to turn this into a Saturday morning cartoon, and we're going to move toward movies. And like, he always had that next level energy, right? Not that copy energy, right? And so it's one of the reasons why it's really important. So the player characters, most likely what they're going to do is just going to bypass a fight with Caradoc, right? And Caradoc will let them go their own way. But there's different ways that this can go, and you can see these dials turning, like of where F. Wesley Snyder is saying, hey, 1,000 dungeon masters, 10,000 dungeon masters, 100,000 dungeon masters, maybe 1,000,000 dungeon masters are going to run this, and I want there to be different ways that this puzzle can be clicked together, right? And it's really fascinating, right? I think the best way to deal with Caradoc is actually accept his help and say, we're going to go, we're going to go take care of Lord Soth. You come help us, right? And then you can have the Flying Citadel, and then give it to him and let it fall out of the sky, right? Like, I think that's the best way to handle it. So that's one option I would do. I think that's one of the best ways to handle it. That's my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get into the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.